Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live. It is Thursday, March 10th. The year is 2022. I am delighted to be joined by Tina Desiree Berg with Working Internet.
Yeah,
Working Internet. So that's exciting. The Spectrum cartel has left you alone. How you doing, Tina?
they left me alone after replacing everything. I haven't had
Right.
a chance to tell you this. Yeah, the guy showed up and redid all the cable, put in a new box, the whole 9 yards. So he said there was a lot of noise. That was the problem.
Wait. Who was the one who told you that
You
he
did?
thought this? Yes. So I, after Spectrum came to your house 10 times, I diagnosed that it was a noise disturbance. Anyway, I digress. Big show today. Obviously, we've been covering the Russia-Ukraine war a lot, and we'll continue to do that. But we've got to cover other things also, and we have new exclusive reporting as far as Movement for a People's Party. Obviously, we have done original reporting over the last few weeks, not really about whether allegations against Nick Brana. We haven't really got into specific allegations. As journalists, I think you would agree. If a woman hasn't publicly come forward, I don't really think it's for us to divulge.
It's not. Exactly. She can do that in due course if she chooses to. I don't think that needs to be a focus of what we're looking at.
Right. But outside of the allegations, because as I've said, I'm not reporting that he's guilty of sexual harassment or innocent. I was reporting on a fairly, let's just say, some smoke when it comes to the process that MPP board members were removed. And then I've been digging into Nick and MPP put out a pretty extensive statement about a quote unquote coup to remove him, and that the allegations against him were actually part of a coup. We have video messages and other things that seem to contradict that. And before people go crazy, to be clear, I'm for a third party. I'm for a fourth party. I'd love 10 parties. I'm for MPP growing, expanding, getting on the ballot. So, it seems like the response to our reporting has been that we're like DNC funded shills, which is humorous to me.
Yeah.
But I'm not, our reporting isn't meant to tear down MPP, this and that. We're just journalists following facts. So smash the like button.
Let me say this. In fact, I interviewed Mark Nixon, who is the state party chair for Washington this past week. It'll be on my podcast next week. Not about this, but just about how a third party actually gets on a ballot and runs candidates, because he's been successful of doing that in the state of Washington.
Right. I've also covered several MPP events, including the last one. I think I was the only press there protesting outside AOC's office. So let's get to it. And by the way, just as a PSA to the people watching, 5:45 Eastern, I'll be moving over to Call In, the live social podcasting where you could call in to the show. I'll have Christian Smalls from Amazon as my guest. 2 weeks to go. 2 weeks to go before Amazon's union election at Staten Island. So we'll have Christian Smalls on, and he will be able to take your calls. So I'm excited about that. So Tina, I got a lot. We got a lot here, but let's start in Nick's own words. Sabi Sabs, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Sabi Sabs is a YouTube host. For her, she was able to get him to answer some questions. For me, his answer to questions was changing the topic. But Nick, on her show, she asked specifically, do you have evidence for your claim that these allegations were really part of a coup attempt to remove you? It's about 2.5 minutes long, I believe, but let's see what Nick pointed out as the evidence.
Well, I guess I have to ask, why hasn't that evidence been released? Because this story has been out for a couple of days and it's kind of taken on its own form here. If there's that evidence, why wasn't that evidence released to the public?
It actually was. There's an interview that Jordan Sheridan posted. Jackson Hinkle. It was Jackson Hinkle's interview where one of the special committee members, Louis Meisel's, joined and shared and attested to this. It's also on video that they were discussing that they believed that this is a coup, members of the special committee, which was in fact, it led to a political reprisal on the special committee because they had arrived at the wrong conclusion. The investigation was supposed to be predetermined in the eyes of these board members who had originally fabricated the allegations against me and kind of shepherded and even escalated them when the committee wasn't arriving at the conclusion that they sought. And so it actually has. If you haven't had the opportunity to see Jackson's interview, I would definitely do that. And there's video evidence.
So there's video evidence of this happening. And the reason why I ask about evidence is because just because people say that something was said, like, I mean, like, is there any type of recording that shows that this was plotted?
There is. It is, in fact, that recording that led the other board members to attempt to remove them from the committee, from the investigation.
So when I spoke to a member from the board, one of the board members that was removed, they explained to me that this investigation was still going on. You're saying the investigation ended already?
Correct. It had concluded. The findings had been presented, that there was no fault, there was no merit to the allegations, and in fact, that it was politically motivated. And that was the perspective that needed to be stamped out and suppressed when it was arrived at by these board members who had a different conclusion in mind.
So Jackson Hinkle did an interview, and the recording is on his interview?
The recording's not on his interview, but Elise Mizell, who was one of the special committee members, attests to it in that interview. And we can find that recording.
So there's a lot there, Tina. First of all, you and I were talking about this. Journalistically, typically if somebody's accused of something and they have video evidence, what has been your experience?
If they're innocent, they release it immediately and it's done with.
If they're innocent, they release it immediately and it's done with. So he said a few things there. And by the way, we have obtained the video that he said he could find. He didn't give it to us. He also didn't give it to Sabi Sabs. So this was obtained another way. So he said that Elise Mizell, who I've reached out to, she didn't respond. She is an MPP board member. She was one of, originally there were 3 MPP board members on the special committee investigating allegations against Nick. And he said that when Elise Mizell went on with Nick on Jackson Hinkle's show, that she attested to this. She attested to that this was a coup attempt, and that she was attesting to that there's video recording of this or video evidence. I watched Elise on Jackson Hinkle's show. She only spoke about 3 times. There's not a word from her about a coup attempt. There is not a word from her about a video recording. So I asked Nick if he could provide me those quotes on what she attested to. But putting aside Elise, we have obtained audio of David Mizell and Elise. And for those non-MPPers, these are 2 members. They're 2 MPP board members. And they were 2 of the members of the Special Investigative Committee. Again, originally there was 3 members of the investigation committee, and then a 4th was added. So we obtained audio from a recording, and this was in December, on December 22nd of 2021, where David and Elise were talking before Nick was coming on to the Zoom meeting. And Nick was coming on to have his formal interview as part of the investigation. So we obtained the audio that I think this is what Nick is talking about. I reached out to him and said, is there a different audio that you're talking about? That he cite this audio, I believe, is what he's citing as the video recording or the video evidence that these 2 special committee members believe there was a coup. Let's play that audio.
Yeah.
And then we can just kind of go over what you had today.
Yeah.
Because I read your report.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Wow. That
Yeah,
is
so-
that.
Go ahead.
Do you have any indication that that what was discussed in your clarification statement, that there was a predetermined process?
No, that's what
Behind
I'm trying to find out right now. I put in a call to Michelle. I basically asked, I said, if the vote were held today, would you be voting to remove Nick? And she responded back, well, this, that, and the other, and I'd have to think about that and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, good. We need to talk. And so I'm supposed to talk to her after this call, but quite honestly, I'm thinking that we need to talk to Branson, the three of us, because to me, this brings this to a whole different level. I don't know what you're thinking.
I'm leaning towards what you're saying. I am. The reason why I'm not jumping into it, hook, line, and sinker, just on face value, is because I do have a pretty good rapport with Thomas, and I don't see Thomas as a individual who's looking to go and take over the party.
Yeah.
In that sense, and it just doesn't match with his personality. It doesn't match with his work. It doesn't match with his political ambitions. So,
right.
For me, that would seem improbable that Thomas would be.
Tina.
I'm hearing the opposite.
Yeah. So Tina, interestingly enough,
no coup. It's improbable there's a coup, is what I'm hearing.
So the first person, Elise Meisels, who Nick said had attested to there was a coup, even though she didn't. I watched the interview with Jackson Hinkle. She doesn't mention a coup. She doesn't mention a video recording that backs it up. He said she did. She didn't. If you guys want to watch Jackson Hinkle's interview, she spoke 3 times. So he is asking her in the beginning, do you have anything to show that this is a predetermined conclusion? That's kind of like the coup, that this is all predetermined. And she says, and I quote, "No, that's what I'm trying to find out." So the question is, where did the coup claim come from in the beginning? Because she didn't just, this board member didn't come up with it out of thin air. Somebody told it to her. And we'll get to that later, who originated the coup claim.
Yeah.
But she says, no, that's what I want to find out. And David goes further, saying, I'm not jumping onto this hook, line, and sinker at face value, because he's referencing, he says Thomas, and who he's talking about is Thomas Royko, who was one of 5 MPP board members abruptly removed on the same exact day that they called for an emergency meeting to discuss this investigation. So that was on February 19th. Thomas, Regina Clark, and Todd Jellin were removed. 2 other board members were removed over that same weekend. So he says, I find it, I'm not jumping onto this hook, line, and sinker, and, it's improbable. Does that sound like video evidence of these 2 saying they, quote, believe there was a coup?
No, it's the exact opposite. I mean, unless there's other video, audio out there that we have not seen and has not been supplied, I don't see where he's getting that from.
Well, I worked on this. I reached out to all of them.
Yeah.
Like we said in the beginning, if this evidence existed, you would think he would have given it to me when I originally reached out in February.
He would have put it on Jackson's show. Let's be honest. If I was coming on a show to defend myself or my or allegations against me in regards to my behavior with a board, and I had that in my pocket, part of when I booked the show, I would have said, "Hey, here's the video. Go ahead and play it."
Right.
Because it would have proven everything without a doubt that this is what's happening, and there's no more gray area. It's clear.
And the interesting thing is, he says the evidence is on Jackson Hinkle's show. So, we're talking about
like the CIA when they say our intelligence agencies say this. Read our press release. Well, we need evidence. No, but the evidence is there. No, that's the press release. Where's the evidence?
Right. And to be clear, Nick's response for all this is, where's your evidence that I'm guilty? Which I said all along, we are not reporting on the specific allegation against you. I've never said there's evidence he's guilty, innocent. We're reporting on the abrupt removal of 5 board members, which we're going to get to later because there's more video, the abrupt removal of 5 board members, and the process of this investigation, which doesn't jive with what Nick has been saying. So let's say, for argument's sakes, Tina, that Nick, and by the way, I reached out to all of them, none of them got back to me.
Yeah.
But let's say, for argument's sakes, he wants to say, well, that is evidence, what we just aired. They're theoretically talking about it. I mean, obviously, they're both saying they don't actually. One says it's improbable, and the other one says no. You know, I need to make some calls. We also have one of those people in writing.
Yeah.
A month later, not only saying there's no evidence, but also remember, Nick has said there was no merit to the allegations against him, and that's what the Special Investigative Committee found. Colin, if we could show this internal Slack message from MPP. Is there any way to zoom in on that? To the yellow part?
No, there is not.
All right. So
Okay.
I'll just read it. So this is from David Mizell, who's one of the people on that message, on that audio. And he starts out the message, to be clear, yesterday I was accused of leaking info. Because he was accused, Tina, of leaking info to Nick Brana. And I have information that later he was actually asked if he would step down from the committee. So this is who Nick is citing as his proof of a coup. So he was accused of leaking information, and there was a board vote. There was a MPP board vote, not a full vote, to ask him to step down because there was fear, even if he had not leaked information, at the optics of it, at the appearance of impropriety. He would not step down. Colin, let's show his message once again. So at the bottom of that, he says, the recommendations were taken under serious consideration and in no way gave Nick a free pass. To the contrary, John softened the clause of one-on-one supervision. Let me repeat that first line. The recommendations were taken under serious consideration and in no way gave Nick a free pass. To the contrary, John softened the clause of one-on-one supervision. Now, what that is in reference is to several recommendations, also known as punishment, for Nick Brana. There were several punishments that David Mizell, who's in writing there, Elise Mizell's, one of the other special committee member, and 2 other board members, they approved these recommendations.
Right.
They included Nick losing one-on-one supervision for at least 6 months, where he couldn't supervise anyone at MPP. Right. A requirement that Nick has to take sexual harassment training, management training, and I believe workplace training. And that Nick could not, for 6 months, have any other accusations of sexual harassment. Does that sound like no merit to you?
No, it sounds like merit.
Right. So there is David Mizell, who Nick Brana on Sabi Saab's show and elsewhere has pointed to as one of the people who he's one of the board members or one of the committee members that proved there was a coup attempt. In writing, Colin, let's put it back up. In writing, he says, the recommendations were taken under serious consideration and in no way gave Nick a free pass. To the contrary, John softened the clause on one-on-one supervision. And that's in reference to John Branson, who's MPP's lawyer, general counsel, and he revised the one-on-one supervision recommendation. I was told to make it a little softer and not tie Nick's hands. But right here you have David Mizell confirming there were recommendations. He doesn't use the word punishment, but that's what they were. I just listed them for you. Sexual harassment training, workplace training, management training. And he also, the recommendations also were that he could not attend staff meetings or regional coordinator meetings. So these are several forms of recommendations, call it what you want. But it gets better, Tina. It gets better. Right. It gets better.
Accountability. Yeah, it does get better.
So you remember, Tina, that Nick cited David Mizell as one form of evidence that there was a coup?
Yeah.
And that audio recording that we just played? Here's David on the coup. Though the individual who claimed to me there was a coup, quote, coup, was not Nick, I cannot be certain that his opinion did not come from Nick himself. I cannot be certain that this opinion did not come from Nick himself. Honestly, I took it with a grain of salt and did not see the relevance to the investigation at hand. In hindsight, I should have disclosed that, but I had serious doubts and no tangible evidence. Still, I apologize for that. I don't know, Tina. No tangible evidence, serious doubts, grain of salt. Does that sound like somebody who believes there was a coup?
Yeah, I don't. No, my personal belief after looking at all this stuff is that no, there wasn't a coup. That this is just some sort of deflection. It's strange to me that, given all the machinations that we've seen involving the board of directors, and these are very serious things. When you're running a 501c3 or a 501c4, either one of these entities, there's a lot of accountability that comes into play, not only to your members, but to the IRS, et cetera, et cetera. It's very serious. You have fiduciary responsibilities as a board member. So it's very detrimental to have all of these things going on. And the lack of accountability, or I'm going to get rid of anybody that wants to make me accountable, is a very damaging optic, in my opinion.
Well, the bottom line is, when you're a journalist, you look for documents, evidence. So we got an audio recording. Neither of them are saying they believe there's a coup. One of them says, no, I'm trying to find out more information. The other one says, I find it improbable. Then you have his own words. Colin, let's put it back up. You have his own words saying straight up, he's saying, I can't say for certain that this coup thing isn't coming from Nick himself. And we'll have more on that a little bit later.
Jordan, it comes across to me as these are board members actually trying to take their obligation to the entity serious. Yeah. That they realize they have obligations and that they agreed to certain parameters when they signed up for that board position. And they're trying to take them seriously. And I also have to wonder if they have directors and officers insurance covering the board in all of these things, because if there is a lawsuit, they could be, held accountable for what they did or did not do as a board member. So,
right. Well, I'll get to that because that's a good point. But I also want to read the last part of this to reiterate. One of the people Nick claims was the evidence of that there was a coup is saying no tangible evidence of a coup, and I have serious doubts, and I took it with a grain of salt. Here's the last line. At no time did I deny that further actions by Nick did not constitute retaliation. I had also said publicly on the meeting in question we've redacted the accuser's name, that Nick was out of line. I formally communicated this to, again, redacted the accuser's name, and apologized. This investigation was not concluded, and we filed her complaint. So here he's saying, I've never said that Nick hasn't done anything retaliatory, which is, by the way, was the other Special Investigative Committee member, Regina Clark. She's on the record with me saying, yeah, we had to have meetings because we had grave concerns that he was retaliating against the woman who made the accusation. Again, this guy, David Mizell, is who Nick points to, in addition to Elise Mizell's, as essentially clear the evidence that there was a coup. He's saying Nick wasn't getting a free pass. There's no tangible evidence of a coup. He lists some of the recommendations for punishment of Nick. If there's no merit found, why would there be punishment?
Right.
Not only no merit, but he said politically motivated. Well, I have reviewed over 100 Slack messages where this investigation was discussed. There's not a word about a political motivation in it. I've reviewed documents. There's nothing about that I've reviewed political motivations. If documents exist, send it to me from before this story came out. But you just start seeing a pattern here. On Sabi's show, he points to Jackson Hinkle's show as evidence. He lists Elise Mizell's, who was on the investigative committee, as attesting to the coup claim, even though I watched the interview and she does not attest to that. So it's kind of like this many different stories, and it's like a game of whack-a-mole because he's citing this thing and you go to this thing and there's nothing there. And then you get the audio and it doesn't say what he says it says. And then we have in writing this guy saying, yeah, there's no tangible evidence. And oh, by the way, I never said Nick wasn't retaliating. So there's more. There's more.
Yeah, there is more.
Yes. So let's
This
get to that.
This is a wild story.
Yes. So that was David Mizell in late January, his message. So there was also an issue that I was told by sources about Nick basically approaching people who were about to be interviewed by investigators before they were interviewed.
Right.
Which I'm not a lawyer, but I do think that's a no-no for the subject for the subject of an investigation to be reaching out to people who are about to be interviewed as part of the investigation. I was also told that he was reaching out throughout the process to people on the investigative committee, trying to influence them. So the first clip we have here is part of an interview that was done with Phil Atato. And Phil Atato was an MPP board member. He's not an MPP board member anymore. And he was interviewed by the special committee because he was friends with Nick, and he was present with Nick at certain functions where the accuser was present. We're not playing the whole interview, but there are a couple parts that are interesting. Let's play the first one.
Any point did Nick or Rod approach you about us coming to talk to you?
Nick did earlier this week. I'll be 100% transparent. Yeah.
Oh,
so he reached out as a friend. So, more on a friend capacity than a professional MPP capacity.
Okay.
So he just he basically asked me the same thing y'all are. Did you feel like anything weird happened this night? And I told him exactly what I told you.
Yeah. By the way, I reached out to Phil Atato. This is the second time I've reached out to him. No response. You see a pattern of no response from all these people. But he said that, yeah, Nick reached out to him earlier in the week before he was to be interviewed with the So one has to wonder, how does Nick know who's being interviewed next as part of the investigation? Nick's not supposed to know updates of the investigation. That would be like Trump being given updates of who Mueller is interviewing next.
Exactly. It's completely inappropriate.
Number one, how does Nick know that this guy's about to be interviewed? And two, I don't know this guy, and I don't know him, so no comment on him. But why is it that this guy, he's saying, oh, he reached out to me as a friend, not in an MPP capacity? There's no line. There is no line there when he's being investigated and he's reaching out to you.
Exactly. It's a human endeavor. I mean, you can't. Yeah, there's no line.
So
there's no line.
So basically, Nick was reaching out to his friend right before his friend was about to be interviewed. I don't know what was said in that. I mean, this is what he claims, that Nick was just asking him, hey, can you re-jog my memory? I'll leave it to the viewers to decide if they think that's all Nick was saying to him. But it is kind of interesting that Nick, A, knows who's about to be interviewed, and B, is reaching out to them first. But that's not the only person. That's not the only person.
And I mean, it's a good thing that he was transparent about that. I will say that. But yeah, Nick should not have been calling any of these people. It's inappropriate.
Right.
He knows there's an ongoing investigation. He knows that they have to give testimony.
Right. So yeah, Phil isn't the only person. Here is a Slack message. If we could put that up, Colin. Again, there was suspicion among people on the Special Investigative Committee that Nick was reaching out to people. So Todd, who was on later became a member of the Special Investigative Committee, he says that's a major problem if Nick is spreading rumors to acquit himself. It opens up a completely new can of worms of liability for us here.
Yeah, Todd, it certainly does.
Todd asks, has any member of the special committee had any conversations alone with Nick from the period when we received the accuser redacted her complaint until now? Elise, again, one of the people that Nick claims backs up his coup claim, even though we just showed she did not do that. Right. She says, yes, I did, and disclosed from the onset. He called me because I was the one who sent the original notice. During the call, I did not reveal any part of the accuser's complaint. So we have, he's reaching out to people right before they're going to be interviewed in a friend capacity, not an MPP capacity. Okay. He's reaching out to members of the actual investigative committee.
Yeah.
Seemingly at the beginning of the investigation. I don't know. I mean, I can't speak. I could only say for me, if I just got notice of an investigation, I'd probably first reach out to the MPP's general counsel or my own personal lawyer.
My own personal lawyer. Yeah. That would be your go-to. You know, listen, in the very least, the optics of improprietary, can't get that word out. It's say that for me.
Impropriety.
Thank you. My tongue is not working today. I mean, the optics of that are bad in and of itself, because it looks like he's trying to influence them, intimidate them, or do other things. And that does open them up for many other layers of liability, especially for each of the individual board members involved. If it comes to that and it comes out that they were negligent of their duties as a board member, that's very bad, especially if they don't have adequate insurance to defend those claims.
Right. So there's more. Actually, a lot more. So you remember when, remember earlier we got that message from David saying, and I can't say for certain if the coup claim did not originate from Nick himself, because the coup claim came from somewhere first, right?
Right.
So David, who Nick said backs him up on the coup claim, but actually said there's no tangible evidence for the coup claim. Here's Regina Clark in a Slack message. She says, also, I hate to say it, but a little birdie gave me a bit of a coup story that aligned with what David was saying. I personally want to wrap up this investigation so we can move forward. So that's from January 21st. Nick had said at that point that the investigation was concluded. Well, here's one of the members of the committee saying, I want to wrap up this investigation. So seems timing wise, it wasn't done. But then she introduces that a little birdie told her a coup story. Then we learn it's Birdie Brana. Brana is the birdie. So Regina says, the birdie for me is Nick. I personally ended that part of it. This came up as they hijacked the end of my finance project management conversation. I said this is a special investigative committee conversation and that it's to everyone's benefit to hear it as a whole. Yeah. He was trying to do one-on-one conversation with all of us at the beginning of the investigation. Well, I don't know, Tina. He's reaching out to people right before they're going to be interviewed by the investigators. He's reaching out to members of the special investigative committee. And according to Regina, he's hijacking an unrelated meeting on finance to push this coup stuff. It doesn't seem like he was allowing the investigation to naturally go on.
Right.
It seems like he was trying to, outside of formal channels, because the formal channels of an investigation would be he's interviewed by the investigators, which he was. The accuser is interviewed. The investigators interview anyone else that might have pertinent information.
Right.
They go through everything, and they make their conclusions. He was talking to all sorts of people, and it seems pushing the coup claim that he says, oh no, there's evidence other people came to that conclusion. Your thoughts?
I can't even take any of it seriously at this point. It's just so comical on the superficial level. Again, like if there is evidence of that stuff, please show it to us, because you and I, neither of us can find any evidence to the contrary. The stuff we are finding is actually proving to show the opposite is true. I just don't understand how this is happening.
Well, at the end of the day, to me, the important thing here is not MPP. Like we both said, I have nothing. I really have no skin in the game. I'd love to see MPP succeed. I know that some of the state parties have decided to just do their own thing because they have issues with the national and Nick. But the issue is truth and lies. The issue is if the head of
accountability. I mean, they're taking donations from folks that believe in their mission. And if you are negligent in your duties as a board member or as the board president or on the executive committee, there should be serious consequences for that.
Right.
I mean, this isn't just fun and games. It's not just gossip. It's not just, what I heard over at the water cooler. This is actually pretty serious stuff, in my opinion.
Right. And also, bottom line, this is also culture too.
Yeah.
So not that MPP widespread would have a sexual harassment problem or anything like that. But if the chair of the board, if the head of the organization is being accused of this, and then we find, oh, he was interfering in the interfering in the investigation, pushing the claim during the investigation and trying to push it to people on the committee, that comes down to integrity. That comes down to integrity. So let's go on now. There's another issue here, Tina, and this goes to the actual board vote that happened in late February. The actual board vote that happened in late February to remove 5 MPP board members that basically were calling for an emergency meeting. So on Saturday, February 19th, 5 board members, Regina Clark, Todd Jellin, Thomas Royko, David Schmelzer, and David Fischel, they signed a petition for a next day meeting on the investigation and to go through the recommendations. Because again, there was recommendations. Nick said there was no merit. They found it was politically motivated. I mean, I've looked at the recommendations sheet. This says nothing about political motivation. It does not say there's no merit. It actually lists he'd be stripped of one-on-one supervision. He has to take sexual harassment training, workplace training, management training. He cannot attend staff meetings, and he cannot attend regional coordinator meetings. I don't know. If there's no merit and it's politically motivated, I don't know why those recommendations were happening. And by the way, the very people that Nick points to as backing up his coup claim, they signed off on it. They approved those.
Yeah, exactly. So, he removed the board members that were actually trying to do their due diligence, do their job properly. I mean, that's just really bad.
Let's play this second clip. And this is another clip from Phil Atato, who is a former board member. And this is the person who was asked, did Nick or Rod Brana reach out to you before your interview? And he said, yes, Nick did. Let's play this clip.
Bad about the way I resigned and that I didn't write a nice formal resignation letter. But, as I expressed to Nick when we talked earlier this week, it was just a combination of, the stressful last year, the year before that we had, and there's so much had happened in the time I was out this past summer that I felt like it was like so much I had to catch up on between, Slack and, official processes, things like that. And I felt like the die had been cast as far as, where the organization was going to go. The process was put in place for the NOC. I don't have any specific bylaws experience or expertise to add.
And I quote, I feel bad about the way I resigned and that I didn't write a nice formal resignation letter.
Right.
That guy's saying, I feel bad I resigned. He's not a board member. He's saying I resigned. Colin,
he's no longer a board member, and yet here he is.
Well, let's put up the document. So here we go. This is February 19th. You got 6 board members, including Nick Brana, Rod Brana, David Mizell, Elise Mizels, Michelle Ramirez, and Phil Atato signing this document calling for the removal from the board of Todd Jellin, Thomas Royko, and Regina Clark. Colin, keep this up. I want to talk about timing and the timeline here because it's very important. On February 19th, this day that all these people signed this document, on February 19th, Todd Jellin, Thomas Royko, Regina Clark, who are the board members on that document being removed, and 2 other board members, they signed their names calling for an emergency meeting the next day to discuss the investigation and recommendations. Apparently, I don't know what Phil Atato was told. He didn't respond to my request for comment. But obviously, unless I don't know. I assume this is actually his signature. February 4th, Well, we just showed you. He says, I've resigned from the board. Yet February 19th, he's a board member voting out other board members. And why this is important is the board is supposed to be 10 people. So I believe having Phil on there was that quorum, having enough people to vote these other people out. So
he didn't have enough votes to do it legitimately with quorum. So this is what he did. But this is really appalling. This is actually one of the most appalling things of the story. You have somebody that's resigned already from the board.
We're going to get to the most appalling, but I agree. This is pretty bad.
It's pretty.
But Tina, let's be clear here. Now there is an issue. We're not even getting into the allegations. Now there's an issue where these 5 board members legitimately removed. Was Phil Tato actually eligible to vote? Did like at midnight? Did they like get him?
Did
like
they
sign
make
him?
him a board member again, or is he saying that he didn't do the formal letter and they're using that to their advantage? Like there's something fishy here, obviously.
Right. So I asked, and again, this goes back to if Nick had this video evidence. I don't know. You would think he'd release it.
He
But
absolutely would have. He absolutely would have. I mean, why wouldn't he? It doesn't make sense.
Same thing with Phil, though. I just asked him directly, hey, I'm being told by several people you had resigned from the board long before this vote. Did you? Right. He gave me an answer like, well, I'll leave that to Nick. I'll leave that to Nick in your interview. Obviously, I literally couldn't get any answers from Nick Brana. He accused me of being in league with his accuser and that I'm friends with her. I've met this person twice.
Yeah, that was kind of wild. I mean, where is he getting that from? Just because you've met somebody like once or twice at an event, that doesn't make them your friend in the real world at all.
Right. I don't know. He put out a text message from the accuser saying that we were close. I know nothing about that text message. I don't know if she actually said that, but if she did, we're not. I mean, I have nothing against her, but I've known people in politics to embellish relationships for certain reasons. But anyway, putting that aside, to remove these 5 board members that were supposedly part of a coup.
Yeah.
They brought this guy, Phil Tato, who I don't know, sure he's a nice fella, to vote and be the 6th vote to vote these people out. From what I was told, they needed a 6th person for quorum.
That's right.
So it's really questionable. Were these 5 people? Were these 5 people legitimately, legally voted out? I would say
no.
I've asked Nick about it. And by the way, they now have an outside lawyer who we're going to get to in a minute doing a comprehensive review.
Wait.
Yeah. So I emailed him earlier and said, hey, as part of your comprehensive review, did you have any thoughts on this guy, Phil Tato, actually not being a board member, but voting out other board members? Did you have any thoughts on Nick during the investigation, reaching out to people before they're going to be interviewed? Did you have any thoughts about Nick reaching out to people on the investigative committee? In fairness, he said this outside lawyer told me yesterday he's on vacation. So I haven't gotten a response, but I don't know if you're doing a outside. By the way, this is a longtime MPP volunteer doing the.
He's not an outside lawyer, exactly.
Right, but if you're doing
lines,
if you're doing an outside review, you would probably ask for all of the videos including some of the stuff I showed. You'd find out, was there any interference, this and that. From what I'm told, this lawyer was on an MPP call yesterday and said none of this. He also didn't disclose, which we're going to get to, that he directly reached out to the accuser. I'll leave it to people on whether that was a threat. So, Tina, let's just go through the list here because we're throwing a lot of information at people. And smash that like button, share this live stream. Again, at 5:45, we're going live on Call-In with Christian Smalls 2 weeks before the Amazon Union election. So you'll be able to call in to our show and ask Christian questions. You could download Call-In app now and then follow Status Coup on there. So, Tina, we've already established Nick cited these 2 committee members as evidence of a coup, that there was an audio recording of them talking about a coup. We showed you the audio recording. They did not say they believed there was a coup, period. That one of them said, I need to find out more. The other one said, I think it's improbable. Then we showed you one of them in writing saying there's no tangible evidence of a coup. That was at the end of January. Then we showed you the first clip where Filatato is saying, yeah, Nick reached out to me right before my interview. Again, how does Nick know who's going to be interviewed next? And why is he reaching out to people as a friend? I mean, you know, if I'm being interviewed, if I'm being investigated for something, like I'm reaching out to someone who's about to be interviewed, whether I'm friends with them or not, it could only be construed as I'm trying to find out what they're going to say.
I wouldn't answer the phone. If I was in that position and I saw this person calling my phone, I wouldn't answer it. I would be like, no, can't do it.
Right. So now we've established that Nick reached out to other people on the Special Investigative Committee to talk to them about the investigation, to push the coup claim, and all this stuff. But I want to get to something that I really, to me, if all of this isn't enough, it came to my attention yesterday, Tina, that the People's Party, they have a general counsel already, but I guess that they had hired a, outside, what they call an outside lawyer, to do a comprehensive review of the sexual harassment allegations against Nick Brana, as well as the investigation process and blah, 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 blah. Well, let's show what this outside lawyer, his review, apparently, Tina, entailed directly emailing the accuser.
Yeah.
And telling her if she did not respond within hours, that she might face legal action. And again, timeline, Tina. The first story that I broke about that Nick was under investigation for sexual harassment, alleged sexual harassment, was on February 22nd.
Right.
And in that story, I said, based on sources, that the accuser might come out publicly. So far, she hasn't, and obviously that's her choice.
Right.
But the story broke. We did a live stream, fairly big audience, and hours later, on the same day, this outside lawyer, who happens to be a longtime MPP volunteer, emails the accuser this. Subject line, please contact me at your earliest convenience. February 22nd, so the same day, right after I broke the story. Again, the story said she might be coming public. Dear, we've obviously redacted the accuser's information. Please be advised that I have been retained by the People's Party board to represent the organization concerning the recent controversies which have arisen with the board and Mr. Nick Brana. We are interested in discussing possible resolution of these matters without having to resort to court action or other legal remedies. Please contact me or have your legal representative contact me to further discuss. In light of the circumstances, I need to hear from you this evening to avoid damage to my client and potentially ensuing litigation. So, yeah, I don't even know where to start with that. First of all,
I think he's obviously trying to intimidate her.
Well, yeah.
That's how, as a woman, that's how it comes across to me.
Well, let's talk about the technical aspect first.
Sure.
He said, I've been retained by MPP's board. And he tells the accuser, in order to avoid damage to my client.
Right.
Well,
to my client, not to the board, not to the organization, but to my client, which.
Okay, but the story that came out earlier was about Nick Brana.
Right.
As far as I know, the accuser did not accuse the board
of anything,
of 9 other people of sexual harassment. She accused Nick Brana. So if this lawyer is representing the board, and he told me yesterday, I'm not actually representing Nick or Rod Brana, I'm representing the board. If he's representing the board, why are you reaching out to the accuser who she didn't accuse the board of sexual harassment or anything else?
It doesn't make sense.
She accused the chairman of the board, Nick Brana. So that's, from a technical standpoint, I mean, he didn't really have much of an answer for that. But I want to go to the timeline again. The story I broke earlier that day says, here's the, these are the, he's being investigated for this, for alleged sexual harassment, and the accuser might go forward. A couple hours later, you get this email, which I asked him directly. I don't know. This kind of seems like a bit of a threat.
Yeah.
Here's what he said to me. I respectfully reject your characterization of an offer to compromise a dispute as a threat. When two persons or entities have controversies or disputes that could potentially result in litigation, it is not uncommon for one to contact the other through counsel to attempt to resolve the conflict or controversy. In fact, it is the way 99% of disputes are resolved. I don't know, Nick. I don't know, Tina. I've worked at a couple places. A dispute is like, where's my paycheck? Or you're withholding my paycheck wrongly. A dispute is like, you told me the job description was X and it's Y and Z. A sexual harassment allegation, that's not a dispute.
It's not a dispute. No. And I find it very, it just feels like he was trying to intimidate her, which I think is really problematic given the circumstances. And if he does represent the board, that's a poor reflection on the board, in my opinion, a really poor reflection. That is not somebody that's looking to hear her side of the story, get the facts, try to find a reasonable solution at all. He's trying to intimidate her from coming out with her story or from seeking any sort of regress.
Right. And Colin, can we on the tweet thread, if you could go down to the one where I posted his Facebook message. So 3 days after this outside lawyer who was doing a comprehensive review, I don't know if he was doing the review then. He ended up doing the review. 3 days after that, he emailed the accuser basically saying, hey, here's your clock. If you don't get back to me tonight, you might face legal action. So he says that's not a threat. That's just trying to, find a possible resolution to a dispute. He shared.
It's not. I mean, it's like she is entitled. If something went wrong, she's entitled to redress, and he's not even entertaining that notion with that. It's just remarkable that he would say that.
So 3 days later, he's sharing Nick's statement, claiming that this was all a liberal takeover attempt, and Nick's statement said that the removed board members were in collusion with the accuser. So, obviously he's sharing it. He's not commenting. But if you're sharing it 3 days after, how could you, and I asked him this, how could you both be doing an outside review and not disclose that you have been representing, if he wants to say the board, it seems like he's representing Brana, but that you are representing the board and directly reaching out to the accuser, if you don't want to say threatening, suggesting legal action against her. How can one do an independent, fair review if you've already reached out to the accuser? He told me, and this was one of my favorite quotes from him because he seems to be a colorful fellow. Yes, I can attempt resolution of a dispute and examine the People's Party internal process at the same time. Similarly, I could rub my tummy and pat my head at the same time. So that's clearly a serious lawyer.
Very serious guy. Yeah. Wow.
He also told me that he said he follows left-wing things. He was a member of the Green Party, MPP, and other things. And he's also left-handed. He made sure to tell me he's left-handed. So I don't know. He told me I don't believe in third parties. I said, okay, I mean, you could say whatever you want. I don't. My interest isn't in tearing down MPP. I'd be ecstatic if they succeeded. It's about the claim. It's about the claims Nick Brana is making. So I want to keep going a little bit, Tina, if you allow me, because he also said that he didn't think it needed to be disclosed. He didn't think it needed to be disclosed. So, Colin, if we could show the Slack message, it's on my Twitter thread. This is from Michelle Ramirez, who I reached out to yesterday, and she didn't respond either. So, Michelle Ramirez, I believe this was sent out on Tuesday to MPP's Slack channel. She is a member of the board, by the way. Hi, all. Please join us tomorrow, Wednesday at 8:30 for an all volunteers meeting. All current volunteers are welcome to attend. We have a lot to discuss. After the events of the past weeks, it was important to all of us on the board that an outside lawyer conduct a comprehensive review of the events and evidence surrounding the efforts to take the party in a different direction, the claim of sexual harassment against Nick and the investigation that followed. The lawyer, Chris Kruger, with Kruger and Gruber, has informed us that he will be finished tomorrow and could join the call. Okay. So I saw parts of that call. First of all, in that message, it's not disclosed. Oh, this person has also been representing the board in communications with the accuser. Right. That's like kind of an important detail, don't you think?
Jordan, not only is that important, the other part of that is if he is investigating this as an outside counsel person, right? That would require him to have an actual fact-checking conversation with the accuser. That would require him actually listening to what she had to say, hearing her side of the story, seeing whatever facts that she had presented, and doing all of those things. He did none of that. He just went to this place where I'm going to intimidate you, and if you don't respond to me, then I've got possible legal action against you. That's insane.
Well, the other problem, Tina. Okay, technically, he's a longtime MPP volunteer.
Yeah.
In my tweet thread, we play a clip. He says, "I'm with Movement for a People's Party." He's also, from emails I've seen, seems fairly friendly with Nick Brana.
Oh yeah, no, obviously they're friends, and he's like looking out for Nick's interests here. Am I going out on a limb and saying that? Because that's how it looks to me.
Well, I don't want to say obviously. We don't have evidence that they're have best friend forever bracelets.
Allegedly, it seems to me.
But I don't know if I Status Coup. Okay, if Status Coup, okay, and we're not anywhere the size of MPP, but if I was accused of something and then I want to have an outside legal review, and I then got a Status Coup viewer who's a lawyer to do the review, or a Status Coup volunteer, or I mean, that's kind of like, not good.
Yeah, it's not good. It just.
And again, timing, Tina. Timing is everything. I break the story on February 22nd that Nick is under investigation. A couple hours later, this guy emails the accuser, "I've been retained by MPP's board, and you got to get back to me tonight or you might face legal action." He's not serving in a capacity of doing a review. He's serving in a capacity to, quote, solve a dispute, i.e., I don't know, Tina, you're a woman. So to me, that looks like you're trying to stop her from going forward.
Oh, 100%. Yes. That's exactly what it is. It's intimidation, and it's really messed up. And if this guy really was retained by the board, if that is the case, then the board should be ashamed, because this is not how you handle the potential victim of sexual harassment. It's totally unacceptable. It just is.
Well, also, by the way, I reached out to him for comment earlier. He hasn't gotten back to me. He might be on vacation. If he has gotten back to me while I'm live, I don't know. But there's another element here. And, it's kind of interesting because there was a call last night and he gave the results of his outside review. He says to me, and he said on the call, that he wasn't actually looking into guilt or merit of the sexual harassment accusations. He was looking into the review, the actual internal investigation and the processes that MPP has. Okay. So,
which is why he contacted the accuser and left her this intimidating email.
Right. So
that's a cover your ass response, in my opinion.
Right. So to me, he says he's not investigating merit, any of this stuff, but I, in a very short time, I don't know how long this guy was doing the investigation, I have found, if he was examining the internal investigation, I have found Nick Brana was reaching out to people who were about to be interviewed. I have found Nick Brana was reaching out to investigative committee members. We have messages showing that one of the committee members said, "Nick is a little birdie telling me a coup story," and he was hijacking a meeting about finance to push this coup claim. We got another member of the special committee saying, "Yeah, he called me right away after I sent the notice." Did you find any of this in your review? Did you find that Mr. Phil Ateto, who on February 19th signed his name as a board member to vote out these other board members, that he had previously resigned? Because these things, if you're a lawyer, and he is a lawyer, I checked it up, he's a lawyer, he's in Illinois. I think he's licensed in Illinois and Wisconsin.
Okay.
If you did a thorough review, these things seem pretty, you would ask for all the messages, all the interviews, talk to the people, So it seems to me, how good could your review be if you didn't find these things? And I also want to point out, Tina, I didn't even reach out to this person. This is a viewer who reached out to me. Colin, if you have this. This is from Gina De Miranda. Gina De Miranda, and she's a viewer. And she wrote to me, I am a senior HR professional and have a California HR certification.
Okay.
She said, I'm reading over the statements from the alleged attorney to the complainant. It is clear that he is not an employment attorney. His tone is accusatory and could be viewed as retaliatory.
Yep.
In most states and under federal law, retaliating or taking adverse action against someone alleging sexual harassment is prohibited.
That's right.
That's not me.
Which is why I go back to do they even have D&O insurance for the board? Because if they had, they would have already retained legal from their insurance company to handle this. Clearly, that has not happened because their legal counsel would not allow these sort of interactions to happen because it's opened them up to further litigation. Are you kidding me? Now you're going to intimidate and try to, force the hand of the accuser. She's whoever this viewer is. I 100%. Totally inappropriate.
So,
and that's putting it mildly.
Right.
Because you look at the areas that she was entitled to some sort of redress. That's just sort of part of the negotiation process.
Right. And I also think at the end of the day, Tina, put aside the sexual harassment allegations, because I know Nick is saying, well, isn't that the most important thing? Yeah, it is important. And from the beginning of this, I did not report that he was guilty, that he was innocent. I don't think as journalists, we can really report on it if a woman hasn't come forward.
No, you can't. Exactly.
Or a woman is not on the record.
No, and it's her story to tell. She shouldn't be forced to do that unless she's ready or wants to do that either. Let me make that clear.
Like Ronan Farrow's reporting on Harvey Weinstein. It was I don't want to say delayed, but he couldn't go with it because it took a lot of convincing to get the women on the record, which totally makes sense because it's a really scary thing if you've been raped or harassed in these things. And Harvey Weinstein was an extremely powerful person with a whole Hollywood cartel around him to intimidate these women. But what to me, what's really eye-opening here to people who, because there are kind of, it's been described to me as like cultists who just believe whatever is said by MPP. All right, if you want to say there's no evidence of sexual harassment, okay. What are those people's answers for all of this? Because this is a lot of, I don't know, Tina, I'm a journalist. This is a lot of smoke.
There's a lot of smoke. It's totally bad management. In many ways, I feel like they have opened themselves up to losing their status, their protected status. Like, you can't behave like this. It's not a free-for-all. There are obligations that you have to fulfill. I'm particularly disturbed by the quorum vote thing. You're going to add back a guy that resigned to reach quorum to get your way with a board vote. That is really bad.
Right. And also, the guy who resigned had a medical issue. So I don't know if that's the main reason. I don't know if that's why he resigned, but he had a medical issue. So it was known. And I've talked to sources that said he wasn't in the Slack. He wasn't really present for a while because he had a medical issue. So there's just a ton of smoke here. And to me, the bigger implications here. All right, the woman hasn't come forward, so let's just put that out there. We're not assigning guilt or innocence. But what we are saying and what we are reporting is Nick Brana put out a long statement of a coup, and there was a lot of moving parts in this coup. And when he went on multiple shows, and most of the shows he went on were his friends, so he said, I have a conflict of interest. Jackson Hinkle is his pal. Jackson Hinkle did actions with MPP where they got arrested. Good for them. Jimmy Dore at one point was on the advisory council. They're friends. That doesn't seem to be a conflict for Nick. That seems to be these people are evidence to back up his claim. But he told Sabi Sabs very specifically that there is video evidence. There is a video recording that backs up that the special committee believed that this was a coup attempt. The only problem is he hasn't provided that video evidence. The audio we have clearly shows the two people that he was pointing out, David Mizell
We're saying they don't see a coup. Yeah.
We're not saying they
Improbable.
believe it. They didn't say they believe it. One
Yeah,
of them
they
said
said it's improbable. Yeah.
improbable, and he's in writing saying there's no tangible evidence. And by the way, to bring it back to the no merit claim, Nick said that the special committee found that there was no merit.
That's not true.
That it was politically motivated. Well, first of all, I read the recommendations.
Right.
I read all of them. Not only were there recommendations for punishment for Nick, sexual harassment training, workplace training, management training, the loss of one-on-one supervision, the loss of he could not go to staff meetings, he could not go to regional coordinators meetings. There were recommendations for the accuser as well. There were no recommendations for punishment of the accuser. In contrast, the recommendation was that the board would offer to pay for her any therapy she needed.
Yeah.
And that the board would offer her an employment contract.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if if a woman was making up false allegations and was part of a coup to remove you, why would the special committee be making recommendations? We've already went through the punishments for Nick,
which are all fairly reasonable. They're reasonable. What the other part, Jordan, that I don't understand is why wouldn't he just look at this and say, okay, this happened, life lesson, I'm going to go with these recommendations, and moved on. Like, he just keeps digging the hole deeper, and I just can't fathom why that is.
It seems to me by what we've reported here that he was basically trying to make it where the recommendations were never formalized. He was trying to make it where that process could never be formalized, because you would have to assume if that process was formalized by these recommendations, you can't really keep it a secret from the public that.
No, okay, but it's already out there. So take your lumps and be contrite. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being contrite when there's been stuff that's happened that's, not to the best benefit of the organization you're ahead of. Like, being contrite is the best thing you can often do in those circumstances.
And you know what? All I could say, Tina, because, I don't plan on reporting on MPP in this for the rest of my life.
No.
All I could say as a journalist, all you could do. And by the way, Nick,
this is important to cover. Let me just say this. I think it's important to cover these things because, you and I both work, we cover movements, we cover left-wing movements. I also cover right-wing extreme movements. These stories are important for people that are involved, activists, voters, etc. These stories matter to them. So those of you out there that say this isn't that important, we shouldn't be talking about it, I disagree. I think this is as important as any corruption scandal that I would cover within the Democratic Party.
Right. Well, also, it's important because people are giving, and again, I'm not calling for people to stop giving donations. That's up to people. But people are giving donations.
Just know.
Yeah, in large part because Nick has also made claims. He made claims that they were going to have people run on the ballot running in 2022. That's not happening. He's also saying they're going to have somebody on the ballot in 2024 for the presidential. I've spoken with a ton of people who say they are nowhere even in that year.
No, yeah. Although Mark Nixon is going to have in the state party in Washington, they're actually going to have candidates on the ballot this year. So he's achieved that goal all on his own with his state party. So good for him.
And I want to show this comment because I just don't get it. Somebody says, I'm not a troll. I'm not a Nick stan or whatever. But this is obviously extremely biased and in no way serious journalism. You're accusing me of being a troll. I don't know who's accusing you. I'm live. I didn't accuse you.
Yeah, I didn't accuse you of troll, whoever you are.
What exactly is biased? We've obtained the people's own words saying there's no tangible evidence of a coup. Not just any people, the very people that Nick cites as evidence of a coup.
And they're actually in audio saying it's improbable there was a coup. I don't see where the bias is.
And by the way, in terms of bias, I've reached out to Nick Brana now, probably 6 or 7 separate emails with specific questions. In one case, I reached out to him 2 days before I even reported a story with specific questions. He had every opportunity in the world to provide me that evidence. As have
all the board members. If they, my guess is that they're not allowed to speak about this now in public. But
that's another thing. And I'm not a lawyer, but I can tell you, and I've heard this from volunteers that were removed. long ago, but also some others more recently, that they are very afraid of because they signed an NDA.
Yeah.
But to me, you already have two of the board members, Elise Mizell and Michelle Ramirez, that went on Jackson Hinkle's show publicly talking about this investigation. Nick is obviously, in Nick's case, he's responding to allegations, but certain members of the special committee and the board have already, if there's an NDA not to talk about the investigation, they've already violated that. And I'm not a lawyer, but why are certain board members allowed to talk about it publicly, but others can't because they have an NDA that doesn't? You can't have selective application. Can't have selective application of a non-disclosure. Either nobody can talk about it. In Nick's case, obviously he has been accused of this, so he should respond. So to me, I would, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but Status Coup obviously has spoken with lawyers for various things over the years. I've never heard of an NDA where some people could violate it and others can't.
No.
And also an NDA, my understanding, Tina, NDAs don't apply to whistleblowing. NDAs do not apply to whistleblowing.
No. I think there's different. This would be a good question for an attorney. I believe there's different limits for each state as well. Like some states, like California, they're less enforceable than other states. And
as I asked Nick via email, I didn't get to ask him because he basically filibustered our short interview. Do you really? No, it's a fair question.
Oh, I know.
Does Nick give Regina Clark? Well, she's already talked on the record, but does Nick give these 5 board members that were abruptly removed permission to talk? Release them from their NDA. Remember, Elizabeth Warren asked Michael Bloomberg on stage, do you give these people, do you release these women from their NDAs? He said no. We haven't gotten an answer from Nick. So Sabi Sabs asked him about it. He said, yes, they do have NDAs. I don't believe he kind of gave an explanation that, yes, so board members feel free to talk about anything and it won't get leaked. Okay, but what about Nick is accusing 5 board members of being in collusion with the accuser. So you've accused these board members. And by the way,
which is a very serious accusation, I think, too.
By the way, Elise Mizell, who was one of the members of the investigative committee, and Michelle Ramirez, who's another board member, they openly spoke about the investigation on a YouTube show. So I don't know. Consult your lawyers about whether that's applicable, because it sounds a little shoddy to me. Tina, my parting thoughts on this are, contrary to the tale Nick has spun, I don't really know Nick Brana, and I don't really care about Nick Brana. I care about the progressive movement, even though they call themselves a populist movement. I don't think they describe themselves as progressive anymore. And to me, I actually I would love to vote for Green Party. I'd love to vote for MPP if they got on the ballot. I'd love to vote for third parties. I would love to see third parties get on the ballot. Green Party obviously has been on the ballot many times. They've had some victories. So to me, this isn't about like trying to tear down MPP. I don't care, and I don't personally. It's not for me. I'm not. It's not my role to dem enter people. It's not my role to dem exit people. Right. I've always said to viewers, do what you feel. Here's what I'm doing, but you do what you want. Because a commentator could be dem enter or dem exit, but for me, I can't be like dem exit and then go cover India Walton's election for mayor running as a Democrat. I'd have no credibility. So to me, this is about bottom line. He claims there's a coup. He claims that these members found that this was a coup. He claims that these members were in collusion with the accuser for this coup. We have showed you today, the very people he's claiming said, we believe there's a coup, did not say that. One of them said, there's no evidence of it. Mm-hmm. He also said, Nick did not get a free pass, meaning Nick said there's no merit to these allegations. It was found to be politically motivated. Then why would there be recommendations for severe punishment against him? Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense.
By the way, in my experience, if you're innocent of things, you don't have your lawyer reach out to the accuser on the same day that the story breaks
And intimidate her. Yeah.
saying if you don't get back to me in a few hours, we might sue you.
Right.
And that's not trying, as the lawyer said, to resolve a dispute. Seems that that's trying to stop somebody from going forward.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it to people in the movement, for people, members, volunteers, to decide what's true or not. I've given you the facts. I thought it was important to have Tina on, not just as a woman, but as a journalist, because again, he's citing very specific things as his backup, that
Right.
as his proof. And when you look at those things, and Sabi Sabs asked, well, could you provide the evidence? And Nick
Yeah.
said,
I mean, also good for her for doing that. She kept on with that line of questioning.
and Nick said, we could find that. We could find that. I
Mhm.
won't go into detail, but I do know he never gave it to her. He never
Right.
gave her that evidence, which kind of wonder if he didn't give it in the first place to me, if he didn't give it to her, maybe it's because what he claimed was on that recording is not what was on that recording, as we've shown you. So, bottom line, I have other information. I'm going to leave it at that for now. Nick Brana, if he wants to respond to my several emails, he can. I will not have him back on the show. Not doing that.
Yeah. That was,
He had the opportunity to come on the show. When you're interviewing people who literally every answer is to change the topic or start asking you questions or come up with cockamamie things that I am a close friend of the accuser. I'm not. That I am trying to work for The Intercept because I did a couple freelance stories for The Intercept.
also, like, why is that your idea of your big insult? I don't know. That's just wild.
But the funny thing is, did you want me to say to The Intercept? By the way, the mainstream media will not do Flint reporting. They will not publish.
No, they won't.
Details of a Flint cover-up. Do you want me to say no, Intercept? I'm not. You're willing to publish one of the biggest governmental cover-ups of the 21st century? I'm not going to do it because Ryan Grimm works there. Like, it's ridiculous. He just put out a lot of stuff that's not true. So whatever. I mean,
obviously he has some personal issue with Ryan, whatever that is. So
I don't know. I mean, I've said before,
it comes across that way.
I don't agree with everything Ryan Grimm says. I think he's a good guy. I mean,
he's a good guy.
Yeah. So anyway,
I don't agree with what he says either, but he is a good guy. I mean, come on.
So bottom line, I say bottom line a lot. I will just simply say what Nick has said.
Mm-hmm.
Our reporting indicates there's contradictions there. If he has that recording that he told Sabi Sabs about that shows David Mizell and Elise Mizell saying they believe that there's a coup, please provide it. If he has an answer, or David Mizell, who I reached out to, for, hey, David, you said you had serious doubts and there's no tangible evidence. Can you explain that? How that is you believing there's a coup? I'd love to hear from Mr. Mizell. Elise Mizell, they're not related, by the way. I reached out to Elise. She didn't get back. I'd love to hear from anybody. And more specifically, do you, Nick Brana, release these board members from their NDAs, not only to speak, but maybe they have information. Maybe they have information or documents that they have not released yet. So I think if you got nothing to hide,
that's possible. Show them, though. I mean, if you have nothing to hide, or you do have things that contradict what we're saying here, please show them to us. I mean, oftentimes, see, that's the thing, Jordan. Oftentimes when you do these stories, most people that are being accused of something falsely do provide happily, right? They want to talk to you and give you information that exonerates them. But in this particular experience, and it's just been like digging a hole deeper. And I think it's really strange that the same people accusing us of being biased, which I'm not. Listen, I've covered MPP events. You covered MPP events. I've voted for third-party candidates before. I don't mind telling people that. I'm not loyal to the Democratic Party. I'm loyal to candidates that fit what I think is the right thing, the right policy. But if the same thing was going on, if these same shenanigans were going on inside the California Democratic Party, people would be up in arms.
Right. I want to read this comment before we go because I think it's important. John said, the claim is not about a coup attempt. Well, that's actually Nick's whole statement talks about a liberal takeover attempt, and he has said on multiple shows that there's a coup attempt. The claim is about alleged sexual harassment, which was deemed to be unfounded and suspicious given the timing. So, John, where is the evidence that it was deemed to be unfounded? Nick's statement is not evidence, and I just presented that there were several recommendations signed off on by David Mizell and Elise Mizell. So the very people that Nick Brana is claiming back up his story of a coup, they signed these recommendations. And David, in writing, referenced the recommendations and said Nick was not getting a free pass. So how is it that it was deemed to be unfounded?
Also,
if it's unfounded, why is it?
Without even hearing the woman's side of the story, it's completely inappropriate to say something's unfounded. You have no idea what happened.
Right.
Her story hasn't been told.
The person being accused saying they found no merit. Well, I have documents saying otherwise, and saying there were several forms of recommendation that the very people Nick claims back up his story and that signed off on the coup, they approved recommendations. Sexual harassment training, management training, workplace training. He lose supervision, one-on-one supervision for 6 months. That he not be able to attend staff meetings. That he not be able to attend regional coordinators meeting. I don't know if something's politically motivated and the full committee found no merit. I don't know why in the world they would offer those punishments or offer the woman that the board would pay for her therapy and offer her a contract. They offered. Why would you offer a woman who has made a false or politically motivated
employment contract? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
No, not at all. It doesn't make sense. So, and by the way, if it has no merit, why is the lawyer reaching out? Basically, the day that the story breaks, saying, if you don't get back to me and basically do what I want tonight, we might sue you. He didn't say we might sue you, but that's what potential ensuing intentional ensuing litigation.
That's what that means. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Tina, for this. Obviously, we'll clip this out to kind of make it a little bit more shorter for people that can't watch the full live stream to provide our reporting. I am moving over now to Colin. Colin, could you tell people, if they don't know, how to download it?
Yeah, you just go onto your app store and type in Callin, Callin, and it'll pop up there. It's the one that has the 3 bars for the symbol. And you just download that, make your account, and then you search up Status Coup in the search bar, and then you'll find us. You can follow us, and you can follow the specific weekly show Jordan does, including the one right now, which you'll see is already scheduled. And you just click on the show and get to listening.
And we're going to have Christian Smalls, the head of the Amazon Labor Union, who in 2 weeks has a historic historic vote to hold that could possibly make Staten Island, New York, the first unionized Amazon in the country. I'm heading over there now. See you there. Thank you, Tina.
100%.
Bye-bye.